introduce my next guest. She is Minnesota native, 1989 Miss America, and just an award-winning journalist, major power woman. She is Gretchen Carlson. Hi there, Gretchen.
Hey, thanks for having me on, especially in my hometown area.
I know.
I always love to talk to people in Minnesota, so thank you for having me.
We already started getting texts earlier in the show, and one listener wrote in, agree, we are proud of Gretchen. So you've got some fans in your home state. In 18 months you have had, Gretchen?
No doubt. You know, I've always said that my life works in mysterious ways, and people's lives do, and my life has, from growing up as a violinist first, and then becoming Miss America, which was never on my radar screen, and then TV. I was actually going to be a lawyer, and whoever thinks they're going to become a face of sexual harassment, certainly not me.
Probably something you didn't think about when you were getting crowned in 1989, that this would one day, 2 days, here we are, 2 days from your book, Be Fierce, your second book, and really about 18 months ago, less than that even, you say you jumped off a cliff by yourself.
Exactly. It took immense courage, and part of the reason I wanted to write the book was because I heard from so many other women after I did dive off that cliff, and I realized how pervasive the issue was, and that it was in every profession, and it was mind-boggling to me, the epidemic that we find ourselves in within our culture, because when you're actually experiencing it yourself, you feel 100% alone. But I had to do it because one thing I learned about growing up in Minnesota is that you work and you fight for everything, and you never, ever give up. And that was the Protestant work ethic that I had, and that was the approach that I used when I was faced with an incredible difficulty where I was. And I wanted to do it for all of the other women who have faced similar indignities, and look at what's happened now. The floodgates have been opened, and I wanted to do it for my children.
Yeah, well, such courage it took. It wouldn't be that easy for most people, and I'm sure it wasn't easy for you. But ultimately, in July 2016, when you made the decision to sue Roger Ailes, your former boss of Fox News, what kind of pushed you over the edge and you said, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, well, I can't give all the details, and this is one of the things that's worth talking about, because most sexual harassment cases end in either settlements, which is what happened with me, or you're forced into a secret chamber of arbitration instead of an open jury process. And in both, it's just crucial that we change the way we do this, because the women are basically silenced in both ways in which we resolve this, and not allowed to talk about the details of what happened to them. So what I can say is that when I realized my time there was going to come to an end after 26 years of working so hard in the business, I realized, if I'm not going to do this, who is? And I looked into the eyes of my children every night. I have a son who's 12 and a daughter who's 14, and I do not want them to face similar indignities. And I don't want any parent to have to worry about what their child's going to face when they get into the workplace. And if one thing's remained constant in my life through all the twists and turns, it's that when there's a challenge before me, I go for it. And that was what I did. I prayed to God and talked to my family, and I'm still blessed to have my parents in my life, and they were an incredible support system, and then I jumped.
And you did jump, and who could have ever predicted that as every month went by and, that settlement came out last fall, this year, all of these very high-profile cases. Recently, Isa Hackett, a producer at Amazon, has claimed that Roy Price, a higher-up executive there, had sexually harassed her. And then, of course, the case of Harvey Weinstein, the big expose by the New York Times. The thing about Harvey Weinstein, Gretchen, that I wanted to ask you, when I first read about those headlines and read the stories, it really didn't surprise me that was going on with him or in Hollywood, which is sad, but it seems that it really sent some shockwaves throughout Hollywood. What's your take on that case?
I wasn't surprised at all either, but my take is that after all the hard work I've been doing for the last 15 months to try and really elevate the conversation about this issue, I feel so optimistic, even though the revelations were horrific, and I'm sorry for what happened to all of those women. I feel optimistic that we're at a tipping point right now. And it's a watershed moment where one of my favorite quotes is, "One woman can make a difference, but together we can rock the world." And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing that women have found the bravery and the courage within themselves to put their names and their faces to this issue and to say, yes, it happened to me, and it must stop. And that is incredibly heartwarming to me. If I had anything to do with that, I am immensely proud. But most importantly, I believe that we are now going to go across the precipice and say, okay, we're not going to take this anymore. And here's one of the central parts of the equation of that happening. Men. Men have also publicly come forward and supported these women who bravely took a stand. And we need men in this fight. In fact, in my book, Be Fierce, I have a whole chapter dedicated to men because I found so many great guys who were already doing incredible work. And the majority of men want to give women a safe work environment. The majority.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Most men are not creeps.
No.
They want women to thrive and survive and be equals out there in the workplace. It makes women and men better when that happens. I'm talking with Gretchen Carlson. She is the author of the new book, Be Fierce. It comes out Tuesday. She is one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people of 2017. And indeed, when she jumped off a cliff by herself in the summer of 2016, she opened up what is turning out to be some floodgates for others to have the courage, to have the guts to come forward and point out who is abusing them, who is harassing them. It's a long journey, though, right, Gretchen, even once you come out and say it out loud to someone.
Yes, and this is why I have one of my chapters in the book is a playbook, actually, for women. It's a guide, a 12-point plan that I've come up with if they happen to be facing this in their life right now. And, you know, one of the first things that I would recommend is that you really should just have at least a phone call with an attorney to just get a lay of the land, to find out, you know, what your situation is. Because here's what happens with women, I think. We are so used to working extra hard and to pounding the pavement to make sure that we get ahead. And so when we face this in the workplace, we think we can handle it on our own. And so we take it and we take it and we take it. And then suddenly one day we decide that's it, and we maybe go and file a complaint. But the problem is we don't have a plan. And then once you do that, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So you can't go back and document what happened to you. You can't go back and tell trusted colleagues so that you have witnesses. You can't go back and gather other ways of evidence, for example, tape recording. And you got to find out what state you live in, whether or not you can even do that, because in my research I found out 11 states it's actually illegal to one-party tape record without consent. And so this whole idea of making sure you have a plan is essential for women. I talked to thousands of them who didn't have a plan. And one of the things they said to me afterwards was, you know, thank you so much for being our voice because our stories ended so horribly. And they felt a sense of accomplishment in seeing that my story, you know, got attention, got headlines, and they felt like their story was then being heard. And that was really the impetus for me to write the book, because I wanted to give these women a voice. I wanted to honor these women, many of whom have never gone back to their chosen career path. It's like one random jerk takes them away from all of their hard work and the American dream. It's awful. And so I wanted to provide solutions and a way of looking forward for women and for men. And today I feel optimistic. I feel like we're on the right path to making a change. And
here is what Billie Jean King says. Gretchen Carlson is a fighter through and through. She is using her voice to put herself on the right side of history on this issue. It must feel good. I know you're fighting, you're helping others, but it's got to feel good when people like Billie Jean King are saying that about you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I just ran into her actually last week at a Most Powerful Women Summit in D.C., where I've been doing a lot of work to try and change our laws to take it out of secrecy. But I have great admiration for Billie Jean King, and obviously her movie is out right now about her tennis match with Bobby Riggs, and she was certainly standing up for women and has for her entire life. One thing I want to make sure I mention as well is that I have set up my Gift of Courage Fund, which I thought was just so essential to financially support organizations that already exist in empowering women and girls. And that really is another lesson that I learned having grown up in Minnesota, the altruistic nature of so many people who live there. And I learned it from my family there, and know that giving back is how you become whole as a person. And all the proceeds from my book are going to the Gift of Courage Fund, because I have found out that giving that gift is contagious. And once you give it to one person, I'm passing it to my children. And I hope that this book will also be a way in which people can give the gift of courage to others who they know might need it. And it's not just about sexual harassment. It's about speaking up in any aspect of your life in which you feel you are being put down. This book is for you to be inspired, to know that you're not alone, and there are tons of people around you who aren't going to take it anymore either.
I love it, and the title is so great. Be Fierce, Stop Harassment, and Take Your Power Back. It comes out Tuesday. You can also pre-order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. It is, I'm really looking forward to reading the whole thing, Gretchen, and you do have a documentary in the works. Tell everyone about that.
Yes, well, actually, I'm working with an iconic film producer, director. We haven't totally announced it yet, but it will be out in the spring. And I am really honored to be working on this project because, again, I feel it's just really important to give other women a voice. Here's the interesting thing that happened. When all these women started writing to me and I started printing off all their emails in my home office, I was into the thousands. And my parents always told me to write thank you notes to people, so I started responding to every single one of these women. And
that's so Minnesota, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, it's so Minnesota, and I love it. I'm having my kids learn those same skills. But so what I found out was, here's all these women who haven't been heard. And when I said, would you be a part of my documentary? Would you have your voice heard? I thought none of them would say yes. They all said, could I? Would you do that? And so that was, again, the impetus for coming up with this idea of sharing their stories in documentary form.
Oh, that is so amazing. Well, Gretchen, will you come back to preview that? And when you can talk more about the documentary, we'd love to have you back on the show.
Yes, of course, and thank you so much for giving so much time to this on your program today. It's essential that we work together, men and women, girls and boys, and think about the way you're parenting your kids too, because it's just really, I think, important, especially for our sons, to grow up respecting the women in their lives.
We have to say goodbye to Gretchen, but I want to also mention she is kicking off a campus speaking tour. I think it's just so timely right now as sexual harassment, sexual abuse on campuses seems to be rampant. Gretchen Carlson, thank you so much. Such an honor and privilege to have you on the show today. Good luck with all your work and good luck with the book tour.